Hey listeners, my name is Kay, and this is Dark Tales from the Road. Thank you all for joining me today. Very excited about this one. We're going to be heading to New Jersey to visit the Devil's Tree in Basking Ridge. This is definitely a different one. I know there's a lot of different subjects I could have done in New Jersey, but this tree intrigued me with its history and folklore. And this one's probably going to be a shorter one, but I definitely wanted to do something different for New Jersey instead of like the New Jersey Devil and things like that. So I'm just gonna get started, guys. So what I usually do if you're new here is I do a little bit of history background on the city and state where we are taking our trip down the dark roads. So here's a little history about New Jersey. So one of the first inhabitants were the Lenape people, and they were Lenape. I hope I said that correctly, and it is meaning the original people. And they settled in New Jersey, but also throughout the area there. They were known for harvesting clams on the Jersey shore, and they were hunters and gatherers and farmers growing like squash, beans, sweet potatoes, and corn. Then in 1758, this is when the New Jersey Assembly helped to establish a more permanent home for the Lenape. This was in Burlington County, and so it was known as Brotherton, and it is very well known as the first Indian reservation in the United States. So it was more for the immigrants and settlers that were already there, people coming in, so that they could have a right to the land that the Lenape had while allowing them to stay on the reservation and continue their hunting and fishing. During the colonial times, New Jersey really started with a man named Harry Hudson. He sailed into the Newark Bay in 1609, and that's where New Jersey became a trading colony in places like Hoboken and Jersey City, like in that area where those are located now. They had people coming from all over, especially from the Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, and they all settled in the area of Bergen. And so it was forming, the first permanent European settlement in the state. New Jersey is also one of the 13 original colonies and was a huge player in the American Revolution. There were more battles fought in New Jersey than any other state during the Revolutionary War. They also had a lot of iron mills, so they were able to produce mass ammunition and any other materials that were very essential in the war. The Battle of Trenton is considered a huge part of the war that really led to the victory for the United States. So, November of 1776, the British were in control of New Jersey, and they really pushed George Washington's troops into Pennsylvania. And so, in their mind, no one's going to cross the Delaware River. It's winter, it's freezing. And so they set up camps around Trenton and had planned to cross when spring came. But as we all know, that Washington crossed the Delaware River in the winter and launched a surprise attack on them. They were actually the Hessian soldiers, which were German soldiers that were helping the British Army, and they claimed 900 prisoners. So then after winning the War of Trenton, Washington went on to win the Battle of Princeton. Then the British fled from New Jersey all the way into New York, and that really helped the Americans push to win the war. 1787, New Jersey was the third state to ratify the Constitution and the first to sign the Bill of Rights. And Trenton was officially the capital of New Jersey in 1790. And Trenton actually was the country's capital during the Revolutionary War. And it was only in like November and December of 1784, but it was also considered a possible location to build the capital. But it was passed over and it all went in favor for Washington, D.C. New Jersey is located along the Atlantic corridor, among many, many other states. And it's nestled between New York and Pennsylvania, has the highest population density of any state. It is named for the island of Jersey on the English Channel. And it's a huge vacation destination that, has tons of beautiful coastline and all kinds of seaside resort towns like Ashbury Park, Atlantic City, and Cape May. It also has a lot of legendary musicians that come from there, like Bruce Springsteen, John Bon Jovi, and Frank Sinatra, all come from New Jersey. And it also has a nickname, the Garden State, because it was known as a producer of cranberries, blueberries, and tomatoes, and is very much an industrial center of that area. Between like the 1900s and 1930s, the population was booming because of manufacturing. It became a billion-dollar industry. Everyone was hit by the Great Depression, and hardship and unemployment was a big deal, but World War II really helped them rebound in the 1940s because they were able to produce electronics and chemical industries were going on, and they were large scale operations. There's also been a ton of transportation projects that have gone on in New Jersey, like the New Jersey Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway, and that really helped the people in New York and Philadelphia who were overcrowded, struggling, and they could move out toward the rural areas. And then it was also expanding that industry in the area too. And then they built the airport, the Newark Airport, in 1963, and it is one of the busiest airports in the world. And a fun fact here, organized crime is a huge part of New Jersey. It's very notorious for its history of that. And when it's positioned in between New York and Pennsylvania, with the ton of coastline, it was definitely ideal for moving illegal booze and spirits during Prohibition. That was a very big part of that. And with the continuing growth of New Jersey into like the 1960s and 70s, it became huge for business opportunities for mob families. They were constantly trying to crack down on these families and really pushing the area of the urban northern part of New Jersey, but then it pushed the organized crime near the Oceanside neighborhoods where they were smaller and they had a very smaller police force and presence there. So by the early 1960s, there were a ton of crime families. A lot of them were of European descent, and they all settled around New Jersey. During the 1970s was when large-scale gambling and loan sharking operations began to really come into play, especially in Ocean County, where a lot of the crime families were very well established there. The families included the DeCavalcante crime family, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, the Bruno Scafaro family, and the Genovese crime family. So in the 1980s, there was more crime families coming in from like South America, Asia, and Africa, and they were setting up operations in New Jersey. It's actually believed that the HBO series The Sopranos, which is a New Jersey Italian mob family, where the main character is Tony Soprano, and they say that he is really based on a lot of the notorious New Jersey mob families there, especially like the DeCavalcante crime family. I'm so sorry. So, some fun facts, more fun facts. New Jersey got its statehood December 18th of 1787. The first virtually complete dinosaur skeleton in North America was unearthed in 1858 in New Jersey. It really proved the existence that dinosaurs are real and really showed so much evidence that they could be bipedal. And then in 1868, it was the first dinosaur skeleton in the world to be mounted on display. The boardwalk along Atlantic City was built in 1870 to help with the amount of sand that was being tracked into nearby hotels and like the railroads and the hotels and shops, restaurants, and casinos. And those all started popping up also along that road, along that boardwalk, because so much foot traffic going on there. So Atlantic City became one of the most popular tourist attractions in the US, and the boardwalk remains one of the longest in the world because it stretches for 6 miles. During the later part of the 19th century, Thomas Edison generated hundreds of inventions at his laboratory there called Menlo Park, and they included the phonograph and the electric powered railway. And even though, we all know him as perfecting the light bulb, he actually had more than 1,000 patents during his lifetime for so many different inventions. Saltwater taffy was originated in Atlantic City in 1880s. The Holland Tunnel was built November 13th, 1927 to really open traffic between New Jersey and New York. And it was the first mechanically ventilated underwater tunnel. And it lies roughly 93 feet below the Hudson River. New Jersey was the site of more than 100 battles during the fight for American independence, and it was known as the Crossroads of the Revolution. And in New Jersey, they are home to Princeton and Rutgers University, and those are only two of the 9 colleges that were founded in the 13 colonies before the American Revolution. That's pretty cool. Some of the very well-known names that went there were like James Madison, Aaron Burr, William Bradford, and the very first college football game was November 6th, 1869, where Rutgers beat Princeton. All right, I have just a little bit here on Basking Ridge. It's a small town. Every information I found was just repetitive, so I just kind of left with what I had. The area was settled during the colonial times, and it's now home to the old AT&T headquarters, which Verizon operates that building now. It also is headquarters for Calabera, Verizon, like I said, Vencor Labs, Lawyer.com, and Barnes & Noble College booksellers. It was settled in the 1720s by British Presbyterians because they were escaping religious persecution. And that land was bought from the Lenape at that time, and then Bernard's Township was chartered in 1760, granted by King George II. And the Lenape Indians, again, were a huge part of the area and were the first known inhabitants of the Bernard Township area. So again, just a little tidbit. We're going to get into Devil's Tree. This is going to be a shorter episode. So the Devil's Tree is a oak tree, extremely solitary, dead limbs. It's in an undeveloped field. It says on Mountain Road in Martinsville section of Bernard's Township in Somerset County, New Jersey. And it sits kind of off the road, across from a private housing development, and everyone believes that this tree is cursed. So if people damage it or disrespect the tree, then soon after there's some sort of harm that comes to them, like a car accident or major breakdown, all kinds of things. I have all kinds of stories on this one. So I'm going to quote a website called weirdnj.com, and they're really what brought this tree to life. Like, it's always been a folklore, but them doing this research and bringing it more to light is kind of what drew a lot more people into coming to see the tree also. So this is just a snippet of the investigators looking at the tree, and then there's a whole bunch of stories that are a part of this same article. So I'm going to quote it word for word just because they did such a great job. So, quote, "This is one sinister looking tree, and according to the locals who told us of its legends, everyone in the vicinity of Bernard's Township seemed to have a story about it. They say at one time a farmer killed his entire family, then went to the tree to hang himself. According to some, numerous suicides and murders occurred around the evil arbor. Supposedly, anyone who tries to cut down the tree comes to an ultimate end, as it is now cursed. It is said that the souls of those killed at the spot give the tree an unnatural warmth, and even in the dead of winter, no snow will fall around it. When Weird, New Jersey visited the Devil's Tree, we noticed the evidence that many attempts have been made over the years to fell the unholy oak, but all have failed. The tree stands all alone in the middle of a large field off Mountain Road. Its trunk has been severely scarred by axes and chainsaws, some wounds appearing to be quite old. Why no one has yet been successful in toppling the timber, we cannot say for sure, nor do we know what has become of those who have tried." One Weird New Jersey reader described the Devil's Tree to us in this way: "There's a big field, and right near the road is the tree. It's the only thing in the field. Supposedly it's a portal to hell, and a sentinel guards it. He drives an old black Ford or pickup truck and will chase you down the road until a certain point. You will see headlights 1 second, and the next, nothing. The car is just gone." Excuse my barking dogs, I'm very sorry. Another local told us the inherent unholiness of the Devil's Tree is the result of evil that men do, and should not be blamed on the devil. There is a very evil truth to the mythology of the Devil's Tree. At one time, Bernard's Township was one of the central headquarters of the KKK in New Jersey. They held many demonstrations in our town and held many meetings throughout the hills. As per KKK policy, often they would lynch local African Americans to set an example, not only to other African Americans, but also an example of their principles and resolve. The Devil's Tree was more secluded in those times before the developments spread across the rural countryside like a blight. It stood in a very isolated area of woods and fields, far from the prying eyes of the police. The evil energy around the tree comes from the souls of dead men and women who were killed by this vile organization. If you look at the tree, you can see the leftmost branches extends almost parallel to the ground. This was the hanging branch. Another story here. To freak ourselves out, sometimes my friend and I would drive down the road at night telling ghost stories. When the moon is a full red harvest moon and the wind is blowing just right, it looks like there might be bodies hanging from the branch, slowly swaying in the breeze. Another one here. At the time of our arrival to the Devil's Tree, there was a 6-foot noose hanging from the big branch, which extends out one side. We noticed what looked like claw marks from a person or a very large animal. To get a better view, myself and a friend climbed the tree to see if any unique marks were further up. After we climbed up, we were sitting on the branch trying to remove the noose. As we sat on the branch, we began to hear noises coming from inside the tree. When these noises grew even louder, a big bang sounded and a burst of energy came from the tree, sending myself and my friend flying into the air. When I crashed to the ground, I landed on my ankle, breaking it in 2 places. Here's a short one. Right next to the Devil's Tree, there is a rock. It is very warm. Some people call it Heat Rock, and people say that it is the gate to hell. Another one here. We went to Devil's Tree in December when the ground was snow-covered. However, an 8 by 12-foot circle of ground around the tree was totally bone dry. Later, when we were driving home, one of our friends thought he was cool because he took a piece of bark off of the tree and had it with him in the car. We pulled the car over, yelled at him, and made him throw it out the window. Another one here. My friends and I went up to the devil's tree one night and got out of the car and touched it. Afterwards, we went to Applebee's to get something to eat, and everyone was sitting at the table suddenly had all of our hands turned black. We didn't know why, but it took us 2.5 hours to get the blackness off of our hands. Another one. We have all heard the story of not messing with the devil's tree, so we were smart and didn't mock the tree. We went right next to the tree, put our ears to the bark where we heard sounds of screaming and children playing. Again, I went up to the devil's tree this past mischief night with 2 of my friends, both of whom were girls. I just wanted to scare them. I told them all the stories and tall tales that went along with it. I parked the car and proceeded to get out and walk to the tree. I got within arm's distance and reached out and touched it as I had many times before. It's kind of like a ritual I have. When I placed my hand on the tree, a single strike of lightning illuminated the sky. I don't know what caused it to happen, but when I touched the tree, the lightning struck, and when I took my hand off, the lightning disappeared. It couldn't have been a coincidence, or could have been a paranormal proof of the legend's truth. Either way, I thought it was cool, and it scared the hell out of me. Another one here. I'm reminded of an incident which occurred about 8 years back when I was in high school concerning the devil's tree. We had all heard the legend of this infamous spot, and there was so much talk about it around my school. One night, my friends and I decided to pay a visit and see for ourselves how true the legends were. We headed out and came upon the tree. We all began to have very bad feelings and decided to scrap our idea of actually getting out of the car and approaching the scene. We turned around and left without incident. About a week or so later, the talk of the tree began to escalate, and one of the kids in the popular crowd began saying that it was all a bunch of bullshit. A few days later, his mind would be changed forever. This guy and a carload of other rowdy types decided to go up to see the tree that weekend. On Friday night, they began their journey up the mountain to see what it was all about. A friend of mine was in the car, and his story is as follows. Apparently, after cruising back and forth several times, the kids were getting bad vibes and wanted to leave. The kid who was driving and who was the one proclaiming in school that the story was bullshit became angry at the wimps for having bad feelings. He stated to his friends that he was going to prove once and for all the story was nothing and that he wasn't fazed by it. He pulled his car over on the side of the road right before the bend and got out. Marching up to the tree, he began yelling challenges to the so-called spirits. Nothing happened, so to further prove his fearlessness, he pulled down his pants and urinated all over the base of the tree. Still, nothing happened. He muttered an "I told you so" and got back into the car. After starting the car, he began to drive towards the bend in the road slowly. Suddenly, without warning, the gas pedal of the car became floored and the car sped up all by itself. Surprised at what was happening, the guy was unable to control the car and it skidded out and collided into a tree. The kids in the car sustained minor injuries, but the car was totaled. And one last story here from this magazine article. I showed the stories of the devil's tree featured in your magazine to my sister. As I read the tales aloud, she became very pale. When I got to the part about the headlights, which follow you and then go out suddenly, I asked her what was wrong, and she replied, "Oh my God, I went up there about a year ago and got chased out by the same black pickup truck. It was severely tailgating me, and when we got to a short distance away, the lights were just suddenly gone." She and I have never gone back since then. So that's the end of that article, but I do have more, a couple more stories here. One more story, and then a little bit more information. So, okay, another story. Me and my friends were all contemplating going up to Devil's Tree. I had been up there one time before and a truly weird thing happened. It was about November or December when I was first told about the Devil Tree up in the mountains. I was told, don't touch it or something will happen to you or your car. I had just had my car serviced though and had a new fan belt installed. We went up to the tree and noticed that all the snow around it was all melted. After we touched the tree and got back on the road, a black truck with some very bright lights started tailgating me like crazy. I was doing 85 miles per hour down a very winding road. I was scared, and all of a sudden, just as the truck's lights and truck disappeared, my fan belt snaps and I had to pull over. I was scared but relieved that it was all over with. Then last week we went up to the tree with a bunch of friends. We all went up and touched the tree. We even took a Polaroid of the tree with a flash. When we got back to the car, the picture had developed. To our astonishment, there was a lady with a red dress on the right side of the tree hanging from what looked like a brown noose. We were all so freaked out, we were awestruck, and we do plan to go back up there soon. And then this is a comment that was attached to these two stories. So it says, this is one sinister looking tree. It's in an open field with just the tree. It was probably more secluded back in the day, and there are some warehouses off the road a little bit. The odd thing is that there's no snow around the tree. We kept going back to the truck every time we saw headlights coming down the road, just in case. John's hand started bleeding out of nowhere as we approached the tree the second time, and John scared the shit out of me by screaming for no reason. And then here are some other tales that are known about the Devil's Tree. So we've talked about some of these. Hands turn black if you touch the tree. Axes fall from your hands if you try to cut the tree. The quote, guardian of the tree comes after you in his pickup truck. The stone in front of the tree is a gateway to hell. The tree and the stone are warm and snow never gathers at its base. Children have been thrown from the tree branches. The clan has hung people from the tree, and Farmer Nick killed his family at the tree. So again, super short one this time. I wanted to do the tree and I'm like, man, I'm researching it and it's all the same stories, same everything. But I thought it was cool. I don't know why I have this weird thing about trees or some place that's haunted, just like in the middle of nowhere you come across this. And it's like, oh, wow. And I've done one before that was a house or something that had burnt down, maybe a mausoleum, and if you walk down the stairs it's the portal to hell and stuff. So I don't know why, I just kind of like things like that. It makes me want to go look at the tree, just weird. I like weird stuff. I'm kind of a weirdo, guys. Anyways, that is all I have for you today. A nice short one. We will have a bonus dark tale on Saturday the 13th. I literally kept saying Friday the 13th. I apologize, I did not get that correct. So yeah, bonus dark tale, and then when you join us next week, we will be going to Minnesota, and I have one that I really think you guys are gonna like. So enjoy your Wednesday, everyone, and the rest of your week, and we will see you on Saturday. Bye.